We often say that improv is the school of life, and today we will see why it's true, because all the advice I'm going to give you are not only true on stage, they are also relevant in everyday's life. So if you follow my advice, I guarantee you that you will be happier. So today I'm going to talk about something I mentioned in the first Express Machina, the fear mechanisms, which are wayward behavior induced by a legitimate fear, but that are detrimental to the scene. So Johnstone theorized all this, and seeing these fear mechanisms, you might think, but in my improv group I was told that's a good thing to do. So what you really need to understand is that these mechanisms are detrimental when they are motivated by fear. And the catch here is that this fear will not be obvious to you when you are on stage, because precisely these mechanisms are here to make the fear disappear. But I guarantee you that if you can identify and get rid of these mechanisms, you're gonna have a great time on stage. So to introduce these mechanisms, I will make a little map of my own to clarify what's happening. So we'll set a first axis, positive, negative. Negativity is a fear mechanism in itself. You know, it's a very famous, oh my god, these shoes are ugly. Not really a great way to start an improv, because it's not really inviting for the other player. By the way, negativity is the very reason the yes and rule exists. Why? Because negativity will often be translated by a no by beginners. Do you want a cookie? No! So they are told, relax, calm down, everything is going to be fine. Try to say yes, because it's a lot harder to be negative when you're saying yes. And this way they will learn the accepting principle. And then we will say yes and, because there's another fear mechanism which is not doing anything. You know, it's a bit like the T-Rex in Jurassic Park. If you don't do anything, if you don't say anything, nothing is going to happen to you.
This vision is based on movement.
So we are told to say and, yes and. But why and? Why not yes but, or yes so, or yes then? Because and is the most simple, the most neutral form of addition. So or then, it requires a logical connection, so it's asking more from the student. But it's a little bit negative, so that can be a bit scary. And it's simple. Yes, you have eaten an apple and there's a dog in the garden. Easy. Then once the young improviser has learned the concept of accepting and adding, then you can ask for more. You can say no without being negative, while accepting, and you can make logical connections. So let's be clear here, yes and, it's a scam. It's a trick that teachers use so that you can understand the concept of accepting and adding something. But then once you have integrated the concept of accepting and adding, you can say yes but, yes then, whatever you want, without damaging the scene. There, it was a little side note about yes and. Just remember that negativity has two levels of subtlety. First, negativity is not always saying no. Second, negativity is not always a fear mechanism. But since it's a little bit complicated, I will decline negativity in many fear mechanisms that are a bit easier to understand. Finally, to complete my map, I will use another axis that I will call the building destroying axis. And I will put the fear mechanisms on this map. The princess is behind these doors, guarded by an immortal monster. No, you must be confusing with the other castle. So here we're on the side of the negative destruction. Cancelling is very simple. It's when you deny the idea of the other player or your own ideas, because you are afraid of the consequences that you anticipate or of the mistakes that you've made. But the audience has seen these mistakes and they would rather see you use these mistakes and have fun with them. There would be more at stakes both for the players and the characters. The princess is behind these doors, guarded by an immortal monster. Again! Yeah, just like the last 10 we saved. Here you are lowering the stakes. Saving the princess is not exceptional anymore. It is common now. And we don't know anymore why we are watching that scene then. We would rather see the scene of the first princess that has been saved. In improv, everything has to be important, especially in the beginning. It's a courtesy toward the audience, because you are telling them, we are showing you this scene at this place and at this moment for a reason. Something amazing happened that deserves to be told. Okay, so we go through the window, I catch him, you tie him up, then we put glue all over his body and little yellow plushes to make him a giant Pikachu, and then we send him to Japan through express mail. Okay, let's do that. Kinda the same thing as before, in a more positive way. Here you destroy, you lower the stakes by lowering the risk. To do that, the two players are going to agree on what they're going to do next. Less unknown, so less fear. But sometimes in improv you can see that happening, especially during a long format where players create a plan. Here it works. Why? Because it creates dramatic irony or suspense. In short, tension and stakes. So to distinguish both cases, tell yourself if it creates tension, risk, mystery, it's a good sign. If it doesn't, it's probably a fear mechanism. I'll let you decide under which category my story of Gigantic Pikachu falls under. The princess is behind these doors, guarded by an immortal monster. Very well, let's go through the windows. Now, let's go through the roof. Now, let's go through the basement. Now, let's go through the village tavern for an hour or so. So it's very simple. You have a steep slope, like a black track, and you decide to go on the green line, going sideways, calmly, nicely, and you're not taking a lot of risk. So it's not always because of fear. Sometimes it's just a lack of listening or because you forgot what the scene was about. But sometimes it's because you're afraid of meeting the monster. That's a concept from Keith Johnstone, meet the monster. In this case, it would be better like to meet the monster, to talk with him, maybe to fall in love with the monster, but you have to go where it's dangerous. That's what we want to see. So here you're going to give yourself a high status to control the other player, so it would be less scary already. But on top of that, you're going to use your high status to control and humiliate the other player. Because when we bully people, we feel better about ourselves. So sometimes, with a bit of experience, you can use ping-ping on purpose to tickle a little bit your scene partner. But if you're a beginner, go easy, tiger. The princess is behind these doors, guarded by an immortal monster. But I don't know how to fight, and you're stronger than me. It's the opposite of ping-ping. You're going to take a low status and play an incompetent character that will make everybody understand that you shouldn't ask him anything. That's the best way never to be in danger.
Keith Johnstone wrote, a person who plays high status is saying, don't come near me, I bite. Someone who plays low is saying, don't bite me, I'm not worth the trouble.
Whatever your status is, remember that the audience likes to see people who look competent on stage, whether it's true or not. The princess is behind these doors, guarded by an immortal monster. But I'm not here to rescue the princess, and I can't open the door. Here you have many sides of the same mechanism. Blocking is direct because you invalidate the proposition of the other player. Hedging is creating a useless and artificial obstacle to counter the proposition of the other player. And bridging is when you uselessly delay the consequences of the proposition that has been made. You really know it's fear because you block without proposing anything else. So best case scenario, the scene slows down. Worst case scenario, the scene dies. Okay guys, I'm going to teach you how to dance. Woohoo! Woo! And now what do we do? So here's a combination between a master-student relationship and imitation. So a horseman of the apocalypse and a fear mechanism is the worst. So why do we join? Because we feel less alone, so less afraid. Together, we feel stronger. But in theater, when two people have the same function or do the same thing, it's one too many. So I know that you will tell me, but in the Chicago school, in the long-form school, we are told to join, to follow the follower, etc, etc. It's true, but you only do that once you have found the first unusual element.
So there is a long-form exercise where you're supposed to join, but the rule that you have to talk about anything but what you are doing. Because that's your escape route. If you end up stuck in a joining situation, do not talk about what you are doing. Talk about something else.
Every time a penny passes through your hands, stick it up your ass. What?
So most of the time when you join at the beginning of a scene, it's a fear mechanism. The princess is behind these doors, guarded by an immortal monster. Well, he must be damn old, because immortality is quite long, especially toward the end. Okay, thank you guys. It's been amazing. Yet another trio, which is actually the same fear mechanism. You're trying to kill the fear by getting loved by the audience at any cost. Either by making them laugh or by looking smart or brilliant on stage. But while doing that, you are damaging the scene. So being original, you can look at the concept of the circle of expectations I've talked about before. And regarding comical exaggeration and gagging, I think it's quite obvious. Sometimes fear pushes us to overact and overdo it, and it's a little bit too bad. The princess is behind these doors, guarded by an immortal monster. Yeah, with princesses it's always an immortal monster. It can never be like a dog or a tiger. Yeah, of course, no, they brag a little bit because they know they're going to end up like a housewife for the next 20 years, so they... Yes, they overdo it. They overdo it. Overdo it a little bit. Yes. That's very classic. Gossiping is when you talk to say nothing, there's a lot of non-sequitur ideas, and overall, no stakes. So why do we do that? Because just like comical exaggeration fills up the theatrical space, gossiping is filling up the sound space. And that's very reassuring because we feel like something is happening, though actually nothing is moving forward. But not all gossiping is bad.
As Sightfield says in Screenplay, the foundations of screenwriting, dialogue serves two main purposes. Either it moves the story forward, either it reveals information about the main character.
So gossiping is only allowed when you're revealing something about the character, its weakness, its moral point of view on the world, its objective. I invite you to go back to the video I've done on this subject. Just remember what Robert Mikey is saying in his story, dialogue is not conversation. As a conclusion, I could have talked about a lot of other fear mechanisms, instant trouble, the conflict, the looping, but that's already a lot. And if you guys know the match format, I guess you have made some connections between these fear mechanisms and the penalties that are whistled during a match, and that's normal, it's the same logic. Also, I hope this will help you during your everyday life, because these fear mechanisms, you see them all the time, and being able to identify them is the first step towards fighting them. I know also that what is really frustrating with these fear mechanisms is that it tells you what not to do and not what to do. So the moral of the story here is that in improv, go where your fear is telling you not to go. That's where it's fun usually. Finally, I want to leave you with the video of Tony Robbins, who's not talking about improv, but about our needs. And that could explain as well our fear mechanisms. Finally, I will invite you to comment, like and share this video. Go watch some improv, or even better, do some. Goodbye.
Got a bad boy and that's all.